How much demand is there? Like, there are a handful of companies that hire for AR, VR. So hello everyone, today we have Prakshal here. He works in tech industry in Bay Area, and today we're going to talk about the future and the present of AR and VR. काफी लोग, in this emerging tech are creating apps after Apple's Vision Pro. Like, a lot of people want to create apps, a lot of people don't want to. For example, there was a startup called Juno. सुना आपने? Yep. Like, they just canceled the project for Vision Pro. It's like very unstable present or future what they think of Vision Pro right now. कुछ लोग कहते हैं कि it's going to become so small that you don't need VR glasses. So we're going to learn all about what this industry needs, so you can learn to penetrate in this emerging market. So hi Prakshal, can you please introduce yourself?
Hey y'all, I'm Prakshal. I work in a tech company in the Bay Area, and most of my work is related to my side projects, and my work is related to AR VR. I'm particularly enthusiastic about this topic. I'm also part of a couple of events and a couple of forums and a group of people who are also enthusiastic about AR VR. So that's my passion, at least for now.
So can you please share your journey, how you entered this industry?
Okay, that's
Very
interesting. Okay, so just to set the context about my life in general, I was in India in high school, and I was preparing for IIT, as one do in India. And I went to a boarding school called Burhanpur. And
Where is it?
Burhanpur is like at the border of Gujarat, Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh, like somewhere in the middle. And this particular city have nothing. Like literally the city is only the school. And the school was just a closed premises where you cannot leave the place. And, just to make people focus on IIT, they don't allow any cell phones, no internet, nothing. Yeah, like you just get an iPad, and it's a locked iPad. You can only access PDF and a couple of other apps, which are related to education. So I had this app called Keynote on my iPad, and I also had the Coder app. And I wasn't pursuing computer science back then, but I wanted to. Like, I was good in programming. I liked making things in general. But when I went to this boarding school, I realized that my creativity was slowing down a little bit because of all the constraints that I had. I had no access to internet. I could only call my parents like once every week for 10 minutes. So I was like, what's the outlet? I was trying to look for an outlet, and I started creating this virtual world on my Keynote, and then bring the animations and bring the images or illustrations that I was making on Keynote to Coder, and make like a virtual world kind of thing using Coder.
So, which platform? What is Coder? Can you describe and go deeper?
Coder is mostly like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, a little bit of other programming languages like Python. It's very basic. So this was just my passion project, just to find an outlet into the creative world while living in a premises where there is nothing creative. So that's how it all started. So I worked on this thing, and then we had monthly inspection of iPad. So I gave my iPad, and then they caught me because they were like, oh, what are you doing? This is definitely not related to IIT. So I was like, yeah, well, I might get expelled now. But they were like, no, I think there is something to it. So they invited a couple of people from Apple, and our school became the Apple Distinguished School.
Really? So the school which was against it, जैसे movie है ना, like आमिर खान की movie in which parents break the guitar. आपकी ऐसी moment हुई, and after that they were like, go जी ले अपनी जिंदगी and go to Apple.
Yeah, so they invited a couple of representatives from Apple to see like what was going on in the computer science side of things, and they showed up my project, and they were like, this is a really nice prototyping way of doing things, like, because I had different experience, like Macintosh experience and Windows experience. Like, you can go in a room and you can access these prototype operating systems in the app. So they were like, this is pretty cool, and for like a 15-year-old, like
Coder. So Coder is platform from Apple or not?
I think it's a third-party platform. I don't know the current state. This is like 7 years ago. So.
HTML, CSS, incredible. What was the outcome of this project, and how your passion accelerated from here?
Definitely. So that was the point when I realized that IIT is probably not my piece of cake. because I liked maths and physics. I didn't really like chemistry, so that was kind of my bottleneck factor. So I couldn't like nail chemistry in the IIT, and I never showed up for IIT. So I had this conversation with my parents that, hey, I don't think I like what I'm doing right now. And one day I was just going through the lobby in my high school, and I saw like a bunch of my friends just looking at a computer. I was like, what's going on here? And they're like, oh, we are looking at US universities like Princeton, Harvard, MIT. And I was like, okay, what should one do to get into these schools in the US? And then I figured out about SAT. So I showed up for SAT without any preparation, got like a okay-ish decent score, and I went to Buffalo after that.
Oh, incredible. So this was your journey entering the US as an undergraduate student, figuring out कि नहीं IIT नहीं होगा, and you want to actually learn about the graphics world, which virtual reality and virtual world. It was clear 7 years ago for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't say I'm a typical type of software engineer. I do like solving problems, but more importantly, I think my passion is solving things creatively. I like to see things. I like to visualize things. I like materials. I like how things are being built, the user interface, user experience side of things. So like solving an algorithm, I can do it, but I don't really enjoy it. So
clear. So इसके बाद आप बताना, after entering your college, how did you continue your passion for virtual reality apps, VR and AR, and then entered the industry?
Definitely. So this is the second chapter of my life. I think I broke down every single part of my life. So at the time, I was trying to figure out my social situation, and I had a lot of friends, but then COVID hit. And that's when I was not doing good as a student in my first semester, because I was trying to figure out the situation in the US where I belong, like some sort of existential crisis going on. And I was like, what should I do now which will set me up somewhere? And I had no intention of working in a big tech company or anything. I had no idea what's going on. So I started working on these personal projects because during COVID, like there was nothing else to do. So my first project was like a virtual treatment platform, just a 2D app. And I worked on that during a hackathon, and I continued working on it with two of my other friends. And that really sparked like an interest in me. I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. Like you can make something and then people will be interested in using it. So we had different accelerators programs as well at the university. So I started applying there for competitions. We won a couple of things. My second project was called Zeal. We worked on like teammate search based on teammate finding tool for using personality and ML based algorithms. So we built that. My third project was a web browser made entirely with React Native. That's when I fell in love with JavaScript because React Native was pretty cool. Like I could, with just one piece of code, I can like make iOS and Android apps, which was pretty awesome. So I built that, and then I got a phone call from one guy in Australia, and he was like, dude, you saved my life. I was like, how so? And he told me his story, like how he could access different tabs across various devices when he needed it. And that was the intention of the tool. We didn't got many users, like there were 300 people using it at the time. And we used to wake up every single morning at 4 a.m. to clear out the cache from our SSH because we had just 1 gig of RAM.
In server?
Yeah, in the server. We were using DigitalOcean back then. It had a lot of money. And so like we were using 1 gig of RAM and just a little bit of disk space. And things used to go like all over the place. So
can you describe the app again? With React Native, person can choose the apps on both platforms. Like, can you describe further?
Yeah, sure. So the browser was called Continuity. Basically what it did is it syncs your tabs across various devices, irrespective of operating systems.
And then Google Chrome wasn't there?
Google Chrome was there, but then we had like other features like privacy detection, which we did some benchmarking. It was better than Google Chrome. It wasn't as good as Brave browser, for example, but it was like somewhere in the middle of Google Chrome, Safari, and web and the Brave browser.
I see.
And then we had the first CI tool in that. So this was pre-ChatGPT.
Wow, was he using NLP?
Yeah.
Natural language processing.
So we were still using OpenAI 3.5 model.
At the time, 3.5 was not there, right?
It was present as an API, but they never built the user interface for ChatGPT.
It was OpenAI Model 3, right? OpenAI GPT-3 then, right?
GPT-3, it was called 3.5 or something.
Okay.
It was just a model, and this is before like they came up with the ChatGPT interface where you can chat with things. That's when the whole industry was like, holy shit. So,
I see. So using AI, so what AI features at the time you had on your browser?
it was just a simple tool. Like when you Google search something, we create like a prompt from your search, and then like it gives you the AI-based result, very similar to what Google does now.
Incredible. So you had made a browser which was published on app stores, Google App Store and Apple's App Store.
Yeah.
Really?
And we had a Chrome extension to support Google Chrome on desktop.
So how many users you had at the time?
We peaked at 300, and then I came to Silicon Valley, and that's when the things went sideways and we had to stop working on it.
So at this point, you are having passion for programming, not necessarily virtual reality, right?
I had passion for building things. So like building products that have some kind of visual element to it. In all these projects, the secret sauce of these projects was building like really nice interfaces for people to interact with, which were previously, for example, not that great experience for the people. I think that was the selling point.
Got it. Okay, so let's continue with this passion for building things. So with your passion for building things, can you share what is happening in this industry right now, AR, VR, and browsers, which you have expertise in?
Definitely. So I can also explain like how my experience like mixed with AR, VR. So like when I was in the industry, I was working in like web-based team, and we were building like good products. It was okay. But I wasn't completely satisfied with what I was building, because on the other side of the spectrum, I was looking at AI and like AR, VR, and every single person I talked to was like, oh yeah, you gotta go to AI. So I was like, okay, well, AI is interesting, and I would like to use AI as an application, but I don't really feel like working on AI to build models. I don't want to do all the research work, and clearly like my passion was more into the user interface side of things.
And to build things
which people can experience. That's, I think, my what I really like. So I was like, okay, this translates really well to AR, VR. So I was looking at the public forums, and I came across this computer science publicly available class at Stanford. So I just went there just to experience things. And I sat in the room, and then there was this person called with the last name Roberts, and she was an incredible guest speaker, because she explained like where we are at in the industry and where we will be eventually. What's the future of AR, VR in terms of like how much of it will be web, how much of it will be native. And it was so insane and also incredible, because it was the same day when Vision Pro launched. So they didn't time it, it just happened. And I was like, yeah, this is pretty awesome. I gotta get into this industry. But people had doubts, obviously. Like, people still believe that AR, VR is mostly for people who are enthusiastic about it, but not for general public. We can talk about it later. But
basically, this Stanford professor was actually giving clarity to the minds of people, because big companies ऐसे बात कर रही हैं कि you will be doing meetings in AR, VR, and I think that professor debunked that there is future to it. Yeah. So that's how you got clarity for this industry.
Definitely. Like, it just completely changed my vision of things, because when you talk with someone who is not directly working in this industry of AR, VR, people have doubts, and that's completely normal.
Yeah.
Like, we don't see that like normal people wearing AR, VR glasses every day. But you see people using ChatGPT every day.
Correct.
So like that provides anything that provides the value, people will believe it.
Correct.
And right now, AR, VR is not providing as much value as people generally promise it will. That's why like people have doubts.
Okay, so now let's get into this industry. What tech stack is needed? I have been building apps for AR as well. I have built one app in a hackathon. Usually what you do is Google ka SDK hota hai. They give you like AR SDK. Right. Apple has AR kit. You use that, implement, and build features. Small features is very easy. But can you share what actually is needed to be a proper dedicated AR VR engineer? What tech stack is needed? What is this industry about?
Yeah. Sure, we will reverse engineer this. So it really depends on what platform you're building. You can build apps using React Native. That's what I use most of the time for my side projects as well, for my work as well sometimes.
Which platform? Unity, Xcode?
So it depends on how much deep you want to go into a AR VR app. For example, if you are a starter, then you don't really want to build an entire experience. You probably need something simple, right? So you can build panel apps or like windowed apps. And these are just apps where you experience the real world or like a virtual background, and then the entire app exists in a panel, a window. And it can do incredible things. So the second step to it is volumetric apps or like 2.5D apps, which are like
Depth to it.
which have some depth to it, but they still exist in 2D. So imagine like a chess or like a card game where it exists in the panel app, but like the card sort of comes out and then goes back in. When you're playing chess, the chess elements are protruding out of the chessboard. So those are the 2.5D apps. The 3D apps, for example, like if you're experiencing the actual real world, you have the spatial audio coming in. And I'm here sitting with Harnoor in the bench, and I'm actually feeling like I'm sitting somewhere outside. Like it does give a sense of depth, gives a sense of, actual feeling of being there.
Just like Apple Vision's, the FaceTime video call, जब आप Vision Pro पहन के करते हो,
Right.
if you experience it, you see that you can feel the face, left, right,
Exactly.
3D. Okay, makes sense.
Exactly. Or a movie theater. You're sitting in a movie theater and you see like the chairs right next to you, and then you see the actual screen. So that is another experience.
When you want to get into this industry, just using React Native, you can be in this industry. It seems very straightforward. But बताना nuances here and there. What are the nuances?
Sure.
People don't talk about.
Sure. So generally, making an app is a simple part for AR VR. It's just like, it's probably not the bottleneck for most people if you know programming in general. You can learn programming language relatively easily if you know one programming language really well. I think the problem for AR VR, the biggest hurdle that comes is accessibility to the device. But then let's ignore that part because we can't really do anything for it. The second bottleneck is how much immersive your app is and how much value it provides to the people. So if you're building really simple for your own use case, like a to-do list, you should definitely do it. But if you're trying to make something for the actual public out there, if you want to start your business with AR, VR, for example, you have to give a real value proposition to things. For example, for me, I was trying to build an app for a supercar experience or concept cars in my own personal time. And the value proposition it provides is, for a normal person like me, I'm not invited to Lamborghini and Porsche and Ferrari events. So where do I experience those things? And like Apple Vision, the person who owns Apple Vision Pro, I'm assuming a lot of people are interested in cars, are enthusiastic about it. They have the financial background to purchase a Vision Pro, hence they might be the right target audience. And so they can still experience that car irrespective of where it is, because a lot of these people are busy in their everyday life. They have a business to run, they have a company to go to. And so like, I don't see people traveling from California to Dubai just to attend a launch event for Lamborghini. So that's the value proposition. And you can think about it too, like real estate is another example. You can give tours in real estate. Companies like Target and Walmart and Home Depot are using AR, VR to show people how their home experiences will look like when they buy products from them. That's another value proposition.
So there is a lot, but what was the problem you wanted to fix? What was the why in your mind that you wanted to get into this industry? आपको क्या लगा कि by you getting into this industry, you can change this?
Yeah, sure. So one biggest factor why people don't use AR, VR, except the form factor, is the onboarding experience. So it's really hard for someone to onboard into AR, VR. If I just give the headset to my mom, it will be so unrealistic for her. So I'm trying to bridge that gap between like people who are enthusiastic about it and people who are like on the brim, or the people who are late adopters.
Got it.
That's one thing. The second thing, as I mentioned, is accessibility. I want to make it accessible even more. and just build awesome things. You know, that's what software engineering is all about. Like, you gotta build things that make people excited.
But most important question, how much demand is there? Like, there are a handful of companies that hire for AR, VR. अगर कोई बंदा enter भी करता है in this industry, how many jobs will they have?
Yeah.
Opportunities.
There are definitely companies coming up which hire only AR, VR engineers, for example. Like VR chat is one example. And sure, the demand right now is not that much, but I think that if we start now, we will see when these two hardware is constrained by hardware and software. So when we see this convergence of hardware and we realize the actual potential of the hardware, it will just take one day. Like, some company out there have to just come up to the stage and say, hey, we nailed it. Like, we have it. And that's when the world will go bonkers. Like, people will be like, yeah, I want to buy this, like today, because I see the value proposition and you need to be ready for it. So I think starting with personal projects, definitely. If you're looking for a job, I would say look for companies which have some investment in this domain. For example, like VR chat, Apple, Meta, Microsoft, Google, like all these companies have some investment into these particular spaces. And I would say just make side projects that will get you to places. For sure, people recognize the importance of side projects.
100%. So, do projects, but what do you think has more future, React Native or native apps?
I think time will tell.
But currently, you can try with whatever is easier for you. Just make projects.
Yeah, just build awesome things, because language is never a constraint. You can learn X number of languages. It's just up here.
So here is the screen recording of the project that Prakshal has made, and you can see that he's providing Lamborghini experience for Apple devices. This is so magical. Can you share what it took to make this? You said 9 weeks. If you had to restart your journey, what would you make and what project ideas you can tell people?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend not drinking Red Bull when you make it. But on a serious note, I would say I was waiting for the right opportunity when I started working on this project, because I was so confused. What should I work on? And I think that's a big blocker for a lot of people, as I mentioned. So just my approach was, I went to a couple of events. I was going to like different dealerships, and then one day, like in January of 2024, I watched this movie called Ferrari. And
the Hindi Bollywood wali ki Hollywood wali?
Hollywood.
Okay.
Hollywood Ferrari. And I watched that movie and I was already like tweaking out a little bit. And then I came out of the theater and I actually saw someone driving a red LaFerrari.
Wow.
Which was like insane. My mind blew up because I just saw the movie. I know the history of the movie, and now I saw the actual car. And it wasn't the first time I'm seeing the car, but that makes it special. So I was trying, for a couple of days, I was trying to understand how can I recreate this experience. And AR VR just felt natural, you know, because you can recreate this whole experience, and then on top of that, you can provide utilities like customization. You can provide like specs and all that stuff. So I think that's where the motivation came from.
I see. You wanted to give that Ferrari feel to everyone. So if you had to restart now, because you spent 9 weeks working on it, how would you build things differently and make it faster? Because it's a very big investment है बच्चों के लिए. Like, people can't invest 9 weeks straight away. So what would you do to make it faster and better?
Yeah. Learn I would say the easiest way to make things is using React Native. To get started, you just have to get started. Like there's always a mental block that will tell you that, oh, I need to learn another programming language. And it was the same for me too. Like I had no Swifty experience before this. And I was like, okay, I never built an iOS app before. And I never built like any native experiences before. So yeah, that was a big block. And from going from zero to like building apps for the AR VR devices, I had to learn Swift, I had to learn Blender, I had to understand how the lighting work in a theater mode, music theory a little bit. So this is also something special about AR VR. You just don't learn programming, you learn about the experiences that you want to provide. So like how sound reflects from things, that is a topic that you might have to learn. Or how to design 3D things using Blender. Maybe you'll become a 3D illustrator, who knows. So you have to put on different hats to like make these apps, and that is the most powerful, challenging and awesome thing about building on these platforms.
So true. And if you want to accelerate your journey in building, like, you know, everything is same. You have to dig in. You just have to build things. But agar abhi aap kar rahe ho, would you recommend people use V0, Cursor AI and like accelerate, or you think people should not use AI in these projects?
I think you should definitely use AI. I didn't because I had no idea. And back when I started, this is about more than 1 year ago. Like most of these apps, they didn't have enough documentation. Like most of these companies didn't have enough documentation about AR VR. It's much better now, hence the AR models are better. But back then, like even Stack Overflow wasn't great, in a great state. So I didn't use AI, but I would definitely recommend using AI.
Awesome. So all you have to do is just go and build it. Like time लगता ही है. ऐसा नहीं है कि if you put passion, you enjoy, you don't feel it. But you have to invest, and one day it will be all worth it. Like AI developers ने कभी ऐसा नहीं सोचा था that this, like, you know, epic movement of ChatGPT will come and everyone will, you know, worship them finally. And it just happens. So you have to just wait for that moment. So awesome. Thank you so much, Prakshal. It was so nice talking to you and pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah,
Awesome.
no problem.